Welcome everyone back to another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son George. I was my mother's caregiver after she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Sadly, she passed on 1/1/2020, but we started together for Sharon.com in her memory and to advocate for a cure for all those still battling PD today and their families, because no one is ever alone in this fight for a cure. Today, we have a really special guest. I call him a celebrity in the UK, but he doesn't agree, even though I just am so grateful for his time, friendship, and all he does, because I found out 2 years after my mother passed that it wasn't just a million or more people in the US battling Parkinson, that it was literally more than, I think, much more than 10 million around the world. And that's when I discovered the World Parkinson Congress and Parkinson UK and just opened up the world and changed my life really for the better and discovered my next guest and just wanted to welcome you and thank you for taking the time today. It's just an honor to finally get an opportunity to advocate together.
Thank you, George. Well, the honor is mine. I was looking down the list of previous guests that you had on your show, and it's quite a roll call of who's who in Parkinson's. So it's honored to be part of that group. So thank you very much.
No,
Um,
I really appreciate it. And it's hard because, when you start this and explain to people why I'm still fighting, because my mother unfortunately passed, some of the people are kind of either in shock or just don't understand that there are people like me and many others out there that still want a cure, because I don't want anyone to ever feel alone like I did as a caregiver. And I couldn't believe, thinking back, that in 15 years, my mother never met somebody who had Parkinson's. And that really put her in a darker place. And that's why I still fight, because I don't want anyone out there listening, or, I hope everyone will share this, but ever to feel alone. And that's what, again, I feel together our voices are so much stronger.
well, it's a wonderful sentiment, and I can relate to your part of your mother's journey, and I've heard that story of isolation so many times in the community, and it's really important to reach out and feel part of this community. It's a wonderful community, and the work that you do is just fantastic in terms of continuing to advocate for the cause. And I've got to say, if you don't mind me saying so, George, you're the most persistent person in Parkinson's that I've ever met, and I mean that in the nicest possible way, because you're relentless in terms of your raising of awareness. And I'm particularly bad at replying to messages and organizing things, and I blame the Parkinson's for a lot of that. But you don't give up, and it's a great endeavor that you have, a great motivation, and long may it continue. Thanks for your efforts in the community. Thank you very much.
I'm glad you say that, because it's funny. I have an odd saying in my own belief in my heart that the only journey today that breaks my heart is the one that I'm not aware of. And then when I discover someone that, like you, not just the show, but I love that, Parkinson's UK, will get into it soon. They had that beautiful expo or event, and I was kind of jealous because I wish I could have been there. And all of my favorite people and some I consider family were there. And obviously, it's tough to travel in the U.S. to there. Plus, I have health issues of my own. But while you were all there, it's advertising it and trying to get other people to be aware of what you're doing. But it's when I there are people out there like yourself, but doing such inspiring things that I feel that could be, if we could even reach one person today, whether in the UK, Australia, Florida, New York, that are sitting on their couch, tough, having a rough day because of Parkinson, or a caregiver, and then all of a sudden they come across the things that you're doing and they smile even for a minute, or realize that now there's hope. That's why I do this. And if we contact someone once and give up, I feel like that connection will never be made, and it's heartbreaking. So I don't accept money. We don't. We send it to Parkinson's UK. We send it to Gary was on the show recently, which was a beautiful conversation. I love him. And a shout out to Gary, and just all the things that so many do around the world that we need to, I think, join together, because we can reach so many more. But I would like to, kind of get restarted, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about your background and the advocacy that you're bringing to the world.
Sure. So let me rewind. So I'm Kuhan. I'm from London, London, England. Family originally from Sri Lanka, in Asia. I was born and raised here in London and sort of traveled and lived in different places in the world, but London is has always been my home. And I've just turned 50 last month, and also last month was my 12-year anniversary of my Parkinson's, my Parkiversary. So
Mhm.
my birthday's on the 3rd of Jan. On the 4th of Jan, 2013, I was diagnosed with
Happy
Parkinson's.
birthday. Relate.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So yeah, it's 12 years since diagnosis, and it's been a bit of a roller coaster ride. Some ups, some downs, some highs, some lows, and I'm sure we're going to get into that. But quite a journey. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing that. And again, you inspire me, but so many more that I don't think you realize. And every person you reach out to is just incredible. I wanted to start by saying it's kind of odd because I'm interviewing a podcast professional, and I'm not. I'm just doing this, new, but I learn every day. And luckily, I had worked as a prosecutor, so a lawyer and police, so I kind of know how to question, but my questions are more intimidating, and these are more for fun, so, and for
Good
obviously
background
awareness.
to have.
Yeah, but what's it first? How did you get into the world of podcasting? Because I always say I don't have any regrets in my life when I was caregiving, but I do have one sad or one that wasn't possible. I wish I had a show with my mother, and not about Parkinson, just about life. Because last night, I don't know if you saw my social media and everybody listening, I discovered it's called My Heritage, and we're not getting any advertising, so I don't want to plug them too much. But I couldn't believe it. We took a photo, and it's like AI, and it brought my mother to life, and
Nice.
I cried, and I mean, it was just like
Oh,
so beautiful. And I canceled the account after because they're so expensive, but I just think it's beautiful that you can, it's not real, but to be able to see
was
her.
it was it accurate?
It's like some of it, you're right. Like you put a few pictures, some of them are odd. Like
Yeah.
you'll see one's funny as we're dancing, but you don't see our legs, so it kind of looks like robots. But there were a
Right.
few that were. I mean, I don't know how they do that. She lit a candle, and we were singing. I was a
Wow.
baby and singing "Happy Birthday." Just incredible. But I wish back then, which I didn't have the technology, I had a show just about our life because I would have been able to relive those experiences. That's why I think what we're doing now and all the work you do on Two Parkies and a Pod, which I love the name, is so important because it lives on really forever.
It does. And to be honest, this world is quite new to me. I'm not from this sort of background. I had an office job. I was never, I always say I never sought fame or I was always a very quiet, reserved kind of person. And I never really, um, I sought anonymity. I didn't seek fame. And to talk in this way, even doing this and doing the podcast and the other things I do in the community, it still takes a bit of getting used to. And for a lot of my Parkinson's journey, I didn't really share with anybody about my diagnosis. In the first few years, I could count on one hand the amount of people I told. So I'm still getting used to this, but I do it for the same motivation that you do it, and which is to raise awareness. There are people that are suffering, and if we can help just one person, then it's worth doing, and hopefully we can help a lot more and do some good. So it's the podcast came around because my co-host in the podcast, Dave, and he'll laugh when he hears you called me a professional. But he really was a professional. He was a TV broadcaster for many years, presenting sports on British TV, Sky Sports. So he was used to that world, and we connected because he lives quite locally to me. And he said I stalked him. I didn't quite stalk him, but it was a bit like internet dating. We were connected over social media, and we arranged to meet up for a date, and we had a drink, and we hit it off, and we thought let's continue this with a microphone in front of us and share this story because we recognize that a lot of people are isolated with this condition. It can be a very lonely place. We came from that place, and we thought, well, let's try and open things up a little bit, and let's share our thoughts with the world. Let's have some guests on. Let's showcase people doing amazing things in the community. And the idea was born. The name was born, as you see there. And you said two Parkies in a pod because that's what we are. And we've done 40 episodes now. And We've got listeners in 121 countries. We've been streamed and played it several hundred thousand times now. And we get some great feedback, and we've got some great guests. And hopefully, we make people laugh along the way as well as informing them. So I found it very rewarding. It's one of the positives that's come out of my Parkinson's, and there have been a few, but that's one of the highlights, certainly the podcast.
It's amazing. I don't know Mr. Clark, but tell me, send our love and support to him too. I don't know if I have more than a few followers, and it's not, I don't do it for that, but I wish we could get this out more because again, I think the more we reach individuals who aren't aware and who aren't battling Parkinson, closer we'll get to a cure. So one thing maybe you'll have to teach me after the show. We'll have a show called the After Show, but that'll be just us.
And we'll compare notes, absolutely.
That I really appreciate. And then also I wanted to bring up something really important is your work with the Parkinson's UK. So maybe you could also touch on that. Plus, everyone listening, I'll be sharing the link for the two Parkies in a pod and UK Parkinson's and many other areas where you can just click and follow our incredible guest and support him too in all of his advocacy.
Thanks for sharing that, George. I appreciate that. And yeah, Parkinson's UK, as you're probably aware, it's kind of like the national charity here, and they do some great work supporting the 153,000 people with Parkinson's in the UK, and probably likely a lot more now. And I got in touch with them a few years ago, and I wanted to give back basically because I feel like I'm quite fortunate in many respects, and I always believe those that can should, and those that can should support those that can't. And I think that's true in Parkinson's, and I think that's true in wider society. I think that's what makes for good society. And I think I love organisations like Parkinson's UK because they come very much from that ethos. It's all about a charity. It's all about the volunteer network. I'll do a few things for them. We started collaborating on the podcast, on the app, which I'm sure we'll get to as well, but also things like getting involved in some of their recruitment, helping be on a recruitment panel for them, evaluating grants. I'm part of a race equality group as well, which is exactly what it says on the tin, try to get people that look like me into research, and sadly, there's not enough. And they're wonderful people, and there are other great organisations here in the UK as well, like Cure Parkinson's and worldwide as well, as you're aware. And I love being involved with these guys. It's a pleasure because you get to meet so many great people, and they do so many great things, and it it really does feel like community. I never really understood what that meant before I got diagnosed, and before I immerse myself in this community belatedly. But it does feel like that, and it feels a very warm, friendly place where everyone's trying to help each other, where we're going through similar things, and we can do what we can to support those that can't or are in more need than us. So that's my story of sort of trying to do good at least, and hopefully impacts some people and bring some joy and benefit for some.
I think it is, and I think a lot of time we don't have the time to talk about how Parkinson's is also affects not just caregivers, but the person diagnosed. However, not just physically, it's also mentally. And I think by individuals out there kind of sitting home alone, miserable, sad, and frustrated, which is definitely reasonable, but instead of that, jumping out there, volunteering, even virtually, brings happiness, cheer, and I don't know a lot about the show, but I know that you're probably making people smile. And that's what I try to do here. Even, if you know me by now, everybody, I'll do anything for someone to smile for awareness. I mean, I dressed up as Santa Claus for our Christmas show, and I dressed up as Hulk Hogan and did a whole thing for Halloween for
Wow.
Parkinson. So then I have a friend who's got a pie in the face for Parkinson. Well, the only thing I'm not going to do is jump out of a plane. I apologize. But I think that these things are really not a cure, but can help you during tough, darker times.
It
And
really can.
we have a blog too. I wrote a little bit about the word loneliness. No one thinks about how
Mm.
horribly that's like almost if we could strike the word like an R-rated movie, but the word loneliness is something we don't talk about enough.
It's true. And I always say, particularly in Parkinson's, you don't have to be alone to be lonely. It can be a very isolating condition. You could, even those that are surrounded with loving friends and family, if they don't really empathize with what you're going through, it can feel a very, very lonely place. I'm lucky in that respect. I'm surrounded by people that look out for me and care for me. But I found the first few years, several years, really quite difficult because I didn't know how to make sense of Parkinson's. I couldn't really talk to people about it. I hid it for a lot of the time. I was quite openly, probably in denial looking back now, and it was tough. So I've been there, and you know the pain that you see in the community, and you've experienced it yourself. And I always think caregivers are also the ones living with Parkinson's as well, and they do so in a way that sometimes they can feel very helpless. They see their loved one suffering. So I think we should look out for them and provide support services for them as well. Um, but yeah, once I did immerse myself, it was a pleasure, and I almost do it for selfish reasons now because I get so much joy out of it. I love
Mhm.
the smile, the laughs, the community spirit, and it's I keep going back to it. It's a positive out of Parkinson's that I've managed to gain. There's been a lot of difficult times, and there will be going forward, but the people that I've encountered really, wow, really some special people, and including yourself, and gives me so much joy.
No, hopefully you know now, not just you, but everyone listening, you always have us there to send love and support and literally 24/7 because there's some nights I don't sleep thinking about ways to reach more people to end this disease. But it's it's something that is important. I still grieve even 5 years later. And it's almost odd what you said and I say continually that there could be positives from it, because obviously, I lost my best friend, my mother, but in a way, she lives on through you and everyone else that I meet. But also, I wouldn't have an opportunity like talking to you today that I'm grateful literally forever for. So, thank you again for that. I wanted to turn, I think this is the app you mentioned, so maybe we could touch on this.
Yeah.
And then I also want to share a beautiful slide that you put together that I actually fell in love with because it's so much going on, like you said in your life, but on one slide,
Yeah.
it's really rare.
Yeah. Um, right, the app. So this is the world I came from, really. I had a career in the mobile industry. I worked for big cell phone operators and internet service providers. I was had a career in product development. So I'm not a techie as such, but I had an appreciation of technology. I had appreciation of what the market, the community needs, and translate those requirements into a product that gets serviced by XYZ technology. So it's a background I came from, and it was really born from frustration because living with Parkinson's can feel like a full-time job sometimes, juggling all the medications several times a day, making sure that doesn't interfere with your meals and vice versa, making sure you're hydrated, making sure you're doing exercise, making sure you're keeping track of your symptoms. I think it's very important, keeping a diary and so on. All these things can be quite overwhelming. And I thought there's got to be a way to arm us with some tools to help us out with with these daily challenges. And I looked around and there wasn't very many. And the tools, and particularly the apps that were developed to try and do that, were slightly overcomplicated. Maybe they were developed by a researcher, weren't very user friendly, weren't easy to navigate around. So I thought, hey, let me just build one myself. So with my partner Helen, we um, we designed an app which is called Parkinson's On, as you see there, on being a very big theme in Parkinson's, as whether it's being on off in terms of your symptoms, whether it's being on time with medication or being on top of the condition more generally. I thought that was the appropriate name. So Parkinson's On was born, and it does a few things. At its core, it's a medication scheduler, which so you put in your medications that you take from a database, comes back with all these images of various medications that have been pre-populated, so you don't have to do anything. Just pick your meds, you pick the time that you take your medication, and then it does everything else. Every time you take a medication, you just log it, and then it works out the next interval timing for you to take your next medication based on your schedule. It allows you to, so meaning if you've taken your hour medication an hour late, let's say, because we know sleep is a big issue for people with Parkinson's, you might be waking up late, some days waking up early. You might be taking an hour before or an hour after. So what it does is it recognizes the time you log your first medication, and it knows, right, you should be taking your next medication at 3 hours later. So it adjusts the time accordingly based on when you've taken it rather than what your prescribed time is. So timing in medication is really in Parkinson's medication is quite important. You can also track your symptoms. You can also track and log your activities when you do exercise and stuff. You can track your sleep via a self-rating tool, and it will generate various insights off the back of everything you're logging. And there's also various self-help tools like yoga content, mindfulness content, sleep content. The podcast is on there. Various other bits of research news and information from Parkinson's UK, who kindly stepped in shortly after we launched our first phase to support us for the second phase. And they've provided some very generous funding by way of a grant, a community grant, to help build the features, some of which launched a few months ago, and there's more launching later this year as well. So it's been a great endeavor. It's allowed me to put my skills and experience to use and try and understand what the market needs, the community, what people want, and try and just build something that just helps people a little bit, with those daily challenges, because it can be a grind. And I use it every day. There's almost 5,000 people now using it on a regular basis, and it's generating some very rich insights for research purposes as well, which I've started writing about in blogs and so on. So hopefully it's benefiting all in terms of all types of users, and we're looking to scale it both in terms of the number of people using it, but also adding to the features this year as well.
I love it. I mean, the nice thing with technology is how much, we've been advancing over time. It's really important because when my mother, 10 years ago, we didn't have as much as we didn't even have app phones. We didn't need,
Yeah.
who knew what an app is. I did want to also kind of not too long as I know you have things and I have so many more questions. We got to get into why you use your first name only. So hopefully we'll get into that in a minute, but this is a beautiful slide I did want to share, and we because it just shows a timeline, but it's a very important one, and it's on one slide, which I like because I've done presentations that are 40 slides, and no one even follows you after the fifth. So
Yeah,
you could kind of just briefly touch on this, and I'll definitely share this too if everybody, anyone wants to see this out there.
sure. You mentioned earlier about grief and the grieving process. That's exactly what this is, actually. And what I described earlier through my periods of isolation and then eventually giving back is actually a well-recognized uh, grieving process. And it started for me way back in 2012, actually. It took me a year, best part of a year to get diagnosed. Very familiar story. I'm sure you've heard it before. I went to the doctor, had a tremor. They said, there's nothing wrong with you. Drink less coffee and you'll be fine. This went on. Then I got a misdiagnosis. So I went from no diagnosis to a misdiagnosis to a preliminary diagnosis of Parkinson's and then a final diagnosis. And all of that took over a year, actually. And that year was probably the most difficult, challenging time until I heard the words that you had Parkinson's. And when I eventually got my final diagnosis, I had this feeling of relief, which sounds crazy to people, but I've heard this before because you had a certain amount of certainty. You can give it a name. You could start to move on with life in theory. Although what happened to me after that protracted diagnosis and the eventual words that I heard that you have Parkinson's, I kind of went into a period in the middle that I've called not moving on, which is where really that translates to a period of denial, which lasted several years. And for example, for the first 6, 7 years, I didn't tell many people. I could count on one hand the amount of people that I told. I didn't tell most of my friends, didn't tell my colleagues, I didn't tell my parents, my family. I really did hide the condition. And there's a stat that Parkinson's UK survey a few years ago unearthed that said 62% of people with young onset Parkinson's hide their condition. So I wasn't alone until I eventually started coming out. This coincided with COVID. I had more time on my hands. I had time to reflect. I gave up my day job because the symptoms were really starting to impact me. That's when I was started telling people, and probably not a coincidence. I'd love to be able to say that I told people when I was ready and I reached a point of acceptance, but reality was couldn't hide it any longer. My symptoms were showing, and it was a burden to hide, and it was a relief again to share my diagnosis with people. It was tough, especially with my family, my parents, but they reacted really well, and everyone reacted really positively or supportively, I should say. And then a natural step after that was sort of giving back by way of the volunteer work that I do, the stuff I do with Parkinson's UK. The I also work with a local neuro charity in my local area in Southwest London, where I run a young persons group. Also give talks to medical students for that organisation as well, second year medical students at the local university. And of course, the podcast, the app, and any advocacy work I can do, and anything I can do by way of supporting research. You said it before, I think getting involved in terms of raising awareness and research, I think is the key here. Which kind of brings me up to date to today. So you can see that roller coaster ride over the last 12, 13 years. It really has been ups and downs, but it's no coincidence where I am now on a, let's say, a happiness scale is higher than where I was, going back to 2012, as you see it there. My condition might have done that, but my overall the level of happiness, let's say, has done that. And that's largely thanks to people I've met, the journey that I've been on. I don't mean the Parkinson's journey, but everything that surrounds it. My partner, who I met, Helen, who I wouldn't have met if I didn't have Parkinson's. Very grateful for that. Where I live, the kind of stuff that I do now, all of that is because of Parkinson's, and I can't knock that. Don't get me wrong, it's tough. It's a shitty disease, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. But Parkinson's, it gives as well as takes, and I've seen that in myself, and I've seen it in others. And um, for that, at least, I'm grateful for it.
Thank you. And this is, as an educator and professor, I think this is a great tool that could be used for many, even schools with teaching about Parkinson. But you'll have to add under 2025 that you're on the Q&A with Sharon St. George.
I will. That's a pivotal thing. I need to a marker on that journey. Absolutely, that deserves a
Well,
mention.
we come to the part of the show where I wanted to get to know you a little bit more and the
Yeah.
audience for you. But can you list three words that describe who you are?
Optimistic, um, open, um, sensitive, I would say.
Thank you. And this sometimes is tough, but is there one moment or most memorable moment that stands out through most of your work with awareness you could share today, like that one moment?
I went to an event a few months ago, and I don't normally like going to big events I don't like crowds, and I'm very conscious about my symptoms even now, either through my speech or visually. But I was really moved by people that we met, particularly listeners of the podcast, users of the app, people that had come across me maybe online or wherever, and they went out of their way to sort of show their appreciation, say hello, wanting to connect, and it was odd because we had this is between myself and Dave, my podcast buddy. We had three people cry on us. One lady collapsed on me, and but overwhelming feeling of sort of joy and love that people wanted went out their way to demonstrate, and that was really really quite moving. Um, and I would say the only types of people that move me more than people with Parkinson's are their loved ones, because they're the ones that really I think they show their feelings so well, and they suffer so much. And when I hear from sons and daughters, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, husbands and wives, that really gets me, especially if there's something I've done that's helped them along the way, if at all, even if it's just a little part of their journey. And if I've had a way to influence that, then it makes me feel very proud, but also very humble, because I feel that they're suffering in a slightly different way, but almost as much as the people that are living with the condition themselves.
And if you were asked to write a script to a movie about your life story, what would you call it and what actor would play your role?
Denzel would play the role
I like
because
it.
he's my favorite actor.
Awesome.
What would it be called? I think I would call it by my handle more than a tremor, because I wish there's one thing I wish everybody with the world knew about Parkinson's. It's more than a tremor. There's so much more to the condition that you can see, and I think that's an appropriate title to have for my movie.
Nice. Well, if Denzel's on our show, I'll let him know you're looking for it.
Please do.
If you,
Knowing you, it wouldn't surprise me if he was one day.
thanks. we had a beautiful actor yesterday actually on, and I don't want to ruin the surprise, but it was George McFly, Michael J. Fox's father from Back to the Future 2 and 3. He was on.
Oh,
It
really?
was a beautiful conversation, and
Wow. The kind of, yeah,
it's,
I know the one. I can picture him, the kind of skinny guy, right? Or he was back then.
yeah, stay
Yeah.
tuned, everyone. That's a
Excellent.
sneak peek for the next episode.
Excellent.
If you had an opportunity to interview yourself 10 years ago, so a younger Kuhn, what would you ask him?
I wouldn't I wouldn't ask him. I'd tell him a few things actually, if I could just twist that a little bit.
Of course.
I would tell my younger self, my who had just been diagnosed, it's okay not to be okay. It really is okay not to be okay. First and foremost. Secondly, tell him that not everybody with Parkinson's is the same. Everyone has their own unique journey. Don't compare. And thirdly, I'd say, going back to that point, don't just focus on the physical stuff in Parkinson's. Don't focus on stuff that you can see. Often there's the stuff that you can't see that will impact you the most. And along with that, there's some precious and joyous moments that will come over the next few years, and embrace them while you can. And seize the moment, seize the day. And if nothing else, Parkinson's teaches you life is precious, if not short, and that we should live for the day, and and just seize the moment and sort of be open to things and people and connect, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's not always easy to advocate because you have to put yourself out there. But I was wondering who is your hero and inspiration?
Well, George.
We have a lot more. We just probably won't have the time. We'll have to have a part two in the future.
Lots. I've got to say, it's the people that we don't hear from. I get a lot of private messages from people that, maybe they're on social media, but they're not looking at Parkinson's. Maybe they're listening to a podcast, but they're not talking about it to their friends or family. Those are the ones that sort of move me the most. Those people that reach out to me. And I had one the other day where she said, just getting through the day was so difficult for me, but I was proud of myself that I did it. I went to work, came home, fed the kids, and I was dealing with all my symptoms at that time, and I was doing the housework and all of it. And I just thought, yeah, getting through the day sometimes, you deserve a pat on the back. You do amazing things, and that's the kind of stuff that moves me. It's great to see people advocating, especially on social media, but we shouldn't forget the ones that we don't hear from, because invariably they're the ones that are suffering the most.
Yeah, I love that answer. And this is a new question I came up with. So, is there anything that's kind of a burning question that you haven't really hadn't found an answer for in advocacy or even with after your diagnosis? So, really, is there something kind of burning inside you that you always wanted to know but might not ever find the answer to?
When I think when I got diagnosed 12 years ago, but when did I have this condition? People say that they've had it for 12 years, X years, but actually, in reality, I think I've probably had it for several decades. What was a trigger point for it? Um, and I don't mean that in a way that in a kind of Morse way. I don't mean it in a sad way. I don't want to know because I just want to know. I want to know because answers to those sorts of questions will help us find a cure and help us find a breakthrough. So sometimes I think rewinding, reflecting back on symptoms and what's happened in your life can be quite useful. So it was the tremor that took me to see the doctor in the first place. But now looking back, I had all kinds of symptoms that were Parkinson's related that I didn't associate to Parkinson's. The sleep issues, the anxiety, the apathy, the fatigue, dystonia, a lot of symptoms that now looking back with hindsight, it's easy to point to and say, oh yeah, that was my Parkinson's. But it was ironic that it took my tremor to actually trigger me to go and see a doctor. So I'd like answers to some of those questions about why, when, what was it, what was the trigger point, and so on, but only to help our collective understanding as to what we can do in terms of tackling this, in terms of finding a breakthrough and eventually a cure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little biased. I love my show because I learned so much from every guest, but I picture you now having a one-man show on Broadway and calling it When, and like literally taking everyone through the chart.
Totally.
And yeah, like,
Yeah,
I mean, think about it. That's a area I don't think a lot of people think about. They might have been diagnosed and now they have it, so they just kind of think of the future and battling it today, but wonder, like even my mother thinking back, she had it for 15 years, we think, but we were not sure. And she didn't tell us for 7 years because she didn't want to burden us. And sometimes I wish she did. Sometimes I think she didn't even know what it was or if she had it. So when you say the word when, it's such a powerful word that a lot of us don't think about. So I have more work for you now. You're gonna have to write a Broadway show. So I think we had the luck. My wife and I saw the Neil Diamond show
all
last.
right.
Yeah, that was beautiful. And I don't want to say anything bad because I love everyone, but I thought, I better not say because it's kind of towards
Go
the
on.
end. I'll say after the show. If you've seen it, you'll know. But I mean, obviously, everyone knows, unfortunately, he has Parkinson. But
Yeah.
there was just one scene I wish he had said the word Parkinson disease because I think that just saying he stopped music because of, his doctor said it, he can't, but not
Yeah.
using the word Parkinson's kind of was a little tough for me to swallow because I think it would have been a big moment and that's worldwide, beautiful
Yeah.
singer. It could have made a big impact. I think if you're a fan of Neil Diamond, he has Parkinson, but I'm
Yeah.
hoping that we can reach people who don't know again.
Yeah.
So,
In his defense,
sure.
even now, saying it out loud, the words that I have Parkinson's, George, it kind of sends a shiver down my spine
Yeah.
sometimes, it's a big thing. But you're right. I think I've seen Parkinson's portrayed on TV, in music, in film more and more now. I do wish they would go a stage further and be a little bit more descriptive about it, not focusing so much on the tremor, bringing some of the other aspects. But compared to when your mum was diagnosed and when I was diagnosed, there was nothing really. It was
Mhm.
just Michael J. Fox doing his wonderful thing, but nobody else. So we've taken a lot of steps forward in that respect. So that's something to be heartful about, something to be feel good about, And I think we're going in the right direction. Absolutely.
No, well, I appreciate it, and I think we could probably talk for 20 hours, and no one will want to listen to either of us anymore. So, just wanted to really thank you, but also more importantly, everyone listening, please support our amazing guests and follow Two Parkies in a Pod. I'm going to share the link. Please support, donate. Even $1 is a beautiful thing to Parkinson's UK in your dedicated advocacy. And also, I never say this is the end because I think that it has to be continued because until there's a cure, we have a lot of work still to do. But I just wanted to know if you could end us today for now with if you could leave the Parkinson's community with some words of encouragement, what would they be?
Um, we've called this highs and lows, and I always think Parkinson's it gives and it takes. And I wrote a little poem, if you'd permit me, actually,
Please.
a while ago. It's a short poem, but I think it's quite appropriate. It's called Parkinson's. You take and you give. You take my mind, but I feel more mindful. You take my movement, but I feel more moved. You take my mood, but never my joy. You take my speech, but never my voice. You take my energy, but never my soul. You take my strength, but never my hopes. You take my senses, but never my true sense. You take my independence, but never my identity. You take my sleep, but make me dream. You take my balance, but make me create. You take my motivation, but make me challenge. You make me hold on, but it's okay to let go. You make me regret, but it's okay to let go. You make me worry, but it's okay to let go. You make me scared, but it's okay to let go. You took my path, but gave me my life. You took my future, but gave me my destiny. And I wrote that one night, and I just, you know, maybe it's the creative part of me that's come out since Parkinson's, but I really do believe that Parkinson's gives as well as takes, and we should cherish what we can and look forward, not look back, because there's plenty of joyful moments ahead, and it's a wonderful community, as we start off by saying. And I feel genuinely grateful and to be part of this community and talk to people like yourselves. And I think we should give thanks where we feel where we have that feeling, and I take the positive, try to take the positives out of Parkinson's. Put it that way.
Well, it's beautiful, but even more difficult to follow up after. So I want to thank you for that, for being you, for advocating, and for being a friend that means the world for the past, present, and the future as we battle this disease and advocate together around the world till there's a cure at everybody's doorstep. So want to thank you. I have a little message for you and for everyone listening. We love you, we support you, we care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I, along with our amazing guests, will advocate for you, and together I feel our voices are so much stronger. We always end the show with saying, I'm just getting started, because even though I'm not, when I discovered you, I was just inspired. That's why I wouldn't give up, because I thought this would be a beautiful moment, and hope you agree it has been. But I hope everyone also listening will share it around the world, because the only thing we want is to find a cure. But until then, we have so much work to do, but it's all positive because we're all together in this. And again, I just want to thank you for your time today. It means the world to me.
Thank you. I agree with all that wonderful sentiment. Thanks for the time today. Thank you, George.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone for listening. This has been another episode of Q&A with Sharon son George. Please stay tuned. We have so much more to come, and as you know, neither of us will rest until the cure is at everybody's doorsteps around the world. So thanks, everyone. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.
Bye.